Hello everyone, welcome back to my devlog. So, last time I mentioned that I was going to be starting with art, and what you see on screen is the opening cutscene to my favorite video game of all time, Armored Core 3. If you noticed that opening sequence, you might have learned that before From Software was making fantasy games with very punishing gameplay, they were making giant robot games with very punishing gameplay. Go figure. In any case, I thought what I would do today would be to take the base mesh of the first AC you get in this game and make a 3D model using that as a direct reference. This is mostly to practice. Now, I won't be using it in the final game, or probably won't even put it in the prototype. But I wanted to brush up on my skills, my technical skills, before I went in hardcore into the design. And it's going to take a while either way. I don't have a script today, so don't expect thoughts that are too coherent. Part of that is just because there's just a lot to take in. But yeah, so people who might know me personally may know that I like to talk about this game a lot. And yeah, there's a reason for that. I really enjoy this game, and all of it, a lot of it's what's come from it, including the Soulsborne series. But in any case, one of the big things that people might not know about me is that I brought this game to college and I thought I lost it, and I ended up nearly breaking down into tears before eventually finding my copy again. And that's what you're seeing, a direct capture from the PS2. Not an emulator, not nothing. I actually wanted to make an entire retrospective on this series, but I'll talk about why I'm going to have to put that off again later, but it's not a huge deal. So when we move over to the title screen, I forget what I was going to say. Anyways, yeah, Armored Core 3, tons of fun. I don't actually recommend it, solely because of its controls. They handle like ass. L2 is to look down, and R2 is to look up. So yeah, this is my profile that I originally beat the game with. I preferred the black and red one. I leaned very heavily towards heavy ACs in the games in general, just because they have a ton of survivability, and it can carry a lot of firepower. Man, look at those rocket pods. Gonna kill a lot of well, actually, that thing only technically had 4 shots. That split into like 50. This right here is the default AC that I will be using as a base model. Luckily, the game has given me a lot of tools to use it as a reference. I took away the stats, so now I have mostly an unobstructed view of the AC, and on the left I have a zoom in on individual parts and components. Sorry about that. That was not intended. So yeah, it's time to get started. This model, I was intending to spend 1 week on this model, but that didn't happen at all. Like, it's pretty intense. I decided to start with the core here. By the end of the day, I'll realize why that was a huge mistake, but for now, I'm just trying to regular polygonally model it. I'm using a bunch of different, the different materials to help me see reflections and curvatures and all that jazz. By the time it's, I don't know how to describe it. I realized that I'm not good at 3D modeling, and that's part of the reason why I decided to open up with practice. But something that didn't click in my brain until about Wednesday. was that it was going to be very difficult. I don't even think I'll complete the whole AC. I'll talk about my plans later moving forward, but yeah, I thought I did good on the top here, and I still do, but the problem is it only looks good when you're looking at it from the top. Later on, I realized that all the proportions are messed up. I might have gone about it the wrong way entirely. I just don't know. There was a lot of weird things that just seemed to go wrong. And the worst part is, it's not like large details that I could delete wholesale and then come back to later. It was more like entire chunks of the core was just not meshing well. Yeah, it just doesn't look good. Yeah, so I gave up about the 3-4 hour mark, and decided to start with the head because it was polygonally a lot simpler, and I actually get a good base mesh rather quickly, but holy crap, did I underestimate this. In the end, I feel like my time wasn't wasted. In addition to just learning my ideal workflow for a project like this, and just learning what I can do with the program in terms of my skills, I learned a lot, and I also learned that this was a much more ambitious project than I originally hoped for. But yeah, I ended today with a weird subdivided version that didn't come out correctly. I kind of just gave up around here. I tried texture painting it, but it all looked weird and warped, so I packed it in and called it a night. The next morning, I decided to practice shading, or creating shaders, because it's not something that I learn too much of, because I simply haven't gotten to that part very often, and when I do, it's fairly straightforward. I feel like I followed a whole bunch of tutorials, and they helped me out a lot. They taught me the difference between, or not the difference between, but it taught me about a bunch of the different variables and how to approach certain sliders and all that jazz. It was an interesting experience for sure. It was a process that I ended up using. It looks like the final product will look weird. You'll know what I mean, but I decided to take another approach today and kind of start from scratch. What I did instead of last time, which is weird poly modeling, I blocked everything out. I know that sounds obvious to artists in retrospect, but having not even entertained the idea of seriously delving into graphical art until about 3-4 years ago, and not taking it seriously until COVID hit effectively, I a lot of stuff that artists probably consider second nature just haven't clicked with me yet. So I'm still fairly new to this, so please be kind in your critiques. Yeah, so what I'm doing here is back face culling. All the pink you see is stuff that wouldn't be drawn in, or like the backside of a surface, basically, and I was trying to make sure everything was facing outwards naturally, or else the shader does weird things. So yeah, once I got my base mesh, I kind of crammed them together, and then went into sculpt mode to try to sort things out. And this is where things start to go very wrong. It's difficult to describe. I probably shouldn't have, to be quite honest. I should have approached it differently. I must say, it's very weird. Like, I'm trying to use the Dyn Topo tool to create a lot of geometry and make those sharp edges for me, but some of them just don't turn out correctly, and I don't know why. I think at this point I scrap that part, go back a few steps, and try to fine-tune my base mesh. But like, I've been working like a lot of these I start at like 10 or 11 in the morning, and I don't stop until like 8 or 9 at night. There's breaks in between. I don't work for the entire 10 hours straight, but it took a lot out of me. But yeah, this is where I ended up Tuesday. I was frustrated and I didn't know how anything worked, and yeah. Well, that was a bit disappointing, wasn't it? I have one more video coming out next week. This one's already about a day late, but what can you do? I will definitely come back later, but I'll definitely show you the rest of my progress, but I don't think I'm going to continue this beyond what I've already accomplished. So, yeah, thanks for sticking with me if you're here, and I'll talk to you next time.